Hi, I'm Randy Altman with Post Perspective. We're here with Technicolor VFX's Paul Ghezzo. And welcome, Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Well, we're here to talk about SIGGRAPH, and I know that you've attended in the past and you get a lot out of it. Maybe just let's start with why SIGGRAPH is important to you.
Yeah, it's in many ways, it's very much like visual effects mecca. There's so many extraordinary minds, bright people that love to collaborate, that love to show what they're up to, what they've done, and talk about, just, down to the artistry of it, the scripting of it, and how they achieved it. So it's, in many ways, it is talking to the person who is behind the curtain, and finding out how they did what they did. And as well as, we're always looking for new talent. So there's a little bit of seeing who's available, who's coming available, and then all the new technology that may not even be available to us, but to see what's being developed. So it is very much a large package of, these are the offerings, and if you go into it with an open mind and not just go to the show floor to see what's for sale, you'll get an immense amount of content, immense amount of inspiration in many cases, or even just the solid understanding on how to achieve something that may not have been achievable before. So.
Gotcha. Well, this year has been challenging on many levels, and probably I'm going to say in early March, everybody sort of had to try to figure out some alternative workflows working from home. Were you guys able to do that, and what was the transition like?
Yes, we were able to. In fact, in very short order, Technicolor at large, with a number of with all of its visual effects vendors, all under the Technicolor umbrella, kind of came together and talked shop and figure out what's the best way to do it. And so, literally within a day or two, over a weekend, I think it was, we had our entire team up and running. And there were some iterations to try to figure out exactly what was the best workflow. But yeah, within, I'd say within a few days to a solid week, we were a good 95% kind of efficient. Every artist, every freelancer, working safely at home, and with content being safe as well. So, which was Technicolor's one of the two main priorities was, making certain that everyone is safe at home and that the content was safe as well.
I also heard that internet speeds, bandwidth was an issue with some studios that were starting up. So, that must have been a challenge as well, making sure that everybody had that at home.
Yeah. And there were, I would say maybe something like 10% of our artists, worked from home that had, a less than par kind of internet access or internet connection with speed. And depending on which sort of service we used, which, not internet provider, but which a remote access service we used, they had essentially a better connection. So collectively, it's, we still are at the sort of the mercy of ISPs and the speed in which they can bring anybody up to, as well as how constant that data rate is, because there are some neighborhoods get overwhelmed still, and there are some of our crew will sit there and say, I'm not going to work from, say like 1 to 3 in the afternoon or whatever it might be, and I'll pick it up later if need be, just because they know that for whatever reason the internet saturation of their neighborhood just gets overwhelmed, and it's just not productive. So.
Sure. So it's been working, right? People have been doing this, and do you see some of what's gone on translating to the future? Do you see these remote workflows sort of becoming the norm?
Hands down, yeah. I could only imagine that From a financial standpoint, it makes a lot of sense for people not to have to commute, which, in turn will hopefully lower their car insurance, lower their gas consumption, take people off the streets, all that. For a business, it also means a smaller footprint in the office, less, just that less square footage that they have to pay for. There are, in turn, obviously expenses that kind of go with it. You've got on a decent ISP that'll keep you running. From the business side, all the security protocols and everything else, any additional hardware, software. So there is a little bit of trade-off, but I think when it comes down to it, it makes a lot of financial sense. And even with the virus that's out, if there is a solid vaccine for it, I still see people, artists, supervisors, everybody working from home as much as they can. But I think there's also a trade-off, because there's no substitute for having people in the office with you and being able to walk up to somebody or have a sit-down conversation with a team, a group, and be all on the same page. Because there is that, that je ne sais quoi, that something that's missing when you're, talking to somebody online as compared to being face-to-face with somebody. I definitely see it being part of part of our future, but there's no replacing, true face-to-face time as compared to FaceTime. So,
Agreed. So that is going to be a trend, the work from home bit. What about virtual production? What do you see happening in terms of virtual workstations, virtual production going forward?
Virtual workstations, yes. I think without a doubt as well, there's an immense amount of flexibility, being able to basically just say, yeah, I need another workstation or I need another server, and being able to get one online and, in short order makes a lot of sense, especially if you're like, oh no, I need a very robust powerhouse of a computer, are you going to run down to the store to buy one or put an order in and then weeks later get it? It's like virtualize, the vast majority of the software that we need will run, almost latentless, on a virtual machine. So it's like, why not utilize it? When it comes down to virtual productions and, whether it's the aspect of like a virtual stage, as I think a lot of people are fond of looking at The Mandalorian and seeing how much production work, they did on a virtual stage. I see that as being a big player in the future. Talking to and working with a number of virtual stage companies in both setting it up, they understand too that this is not a silver bullet. It's not a replacement for production at large. There are still limitations. If you shoot off the edge of the screen, it's a visual effects shot. If there are certain aspects to it, certain camera moves you can or shouldn't do with it. So it's like, you can all of a sudden open up certain aspects that a production may not have had, minimize crew, minimize or maximize safety, but in turn, I think it changes production so that now instead of visual effects being post-production, it becomes part of pre-production, which it always should be anyways. And you have to create your sets before they go to shoot. It's not something that we can create and then comp in after the fact, or it is if they shoot it on green, but then that kind of defeats the purpose of a virtual stage. So there's a lot of, I think, a lot of benefit for virtual stages and virtual production, but it's definitely not the end all be all.
Gotcha. Paul, thank you very much for taking the time and sharing some of your thoughts. I appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.